Discover the incredible transformation, two friends exposed to hidden desires through one touch. The woods stood tall and imposing as Sarah felt the weight of her reality crash against the thrill of childhood nostalgia. Her fingers traced the grooves of an ancient tree, a stark contrast to the cluttered lab where she spent her days mopping up the dullness of possibilities. She glanced over at Jake, his easy smile masking a longing that mirrored her own. As the daughter of a car mechanic, she had been conditioned to treat dreams as fanciful distractions, a luxury for those who could afford them. Each time she imagined an invention that could change lives, an echo of self-doubt drowned her ambition. Would people laugh at her ideas? Was she doomed to remain a technician forever? She swallowed that doubt, feeling it stick in her throat, even as Jake stood beside her, the world of advertising stretching wide and bright for him yet cloaked in shades of gray. A hollow pit formed in her stomach. Jake had it all, or so it appeared. Yet glimpses of his restless uncertainty shone through his casual demeanor, a silent acknowledgement of the weight of expectations pressing upon him. He was meant to climb the corporate ladder, the shining beacon of his family's legacy. Wrapping her arms around herself, Sarah discerned an unspoken fissure between them, his predetermined path cracking against her burgeoning aspirations. A gasp escaped her lips when her fingers brushed against something cool and metallic buried at the base of the tree. An old locket emerged from the soil like a forgotten secret, both alluring and taunting. Before she could share her discovery, Jake's laughter broke through her reflective haze. It was an odd melody, a symphony of lightness intertwined with an undertone of despair. He brushed against the locket, curiosity sparking in his eyes. What was better, to dwell in the comfort of what was expected or to reach for the unknown? Their fingers brushed the locket's polished surface, and in that moment, Sarah felt a rush of ideas flooding her mind, inventions lining up like soldiers ready for battle. But the shadows of her reality loomed behind her, demanding conformity and caution. A bright idea from a mechanic's daughter? They would laugh at her, dismiss her. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but as energy radiated from the locket, Jake's face contorted in realization. He opened his mouth slightly, as if about to declare a grand idea, but hesitation clouded his expression. What if he didn't want to fight against his family? What if writing his truest passion was not enough? Sarah fought to suppress her own fears. They had made this pact to support each other, yet could they really confront their internal struggles without shattering their friendship? The breeze picked up and whispered doubts into Sarah's ear. What if she failed? What if her inventions were just pipe dreams, remnants of a background that clamored for practicality over creativity? And then, there was Jake, locked in a battle of conflicting loyalties to himself and to the family that bestowed upon him a future he never chose. As she met his gaze, anguish coursed through her. They clutched their unvoiced dreams as tightly as they held the locket, a fragile connection between them. But between whispered promises and looming realities, could they truly find a way to wrench themselves free from the roles their lives forced upon them? The air thickened with urgency, leaving an unanswered question suspended in their breaths. What were they willing to sacrifice to ignite their dreams, or would the world reel them back into its grasp, forever? The locket sat between them like a decision waiting to be made, a representation of all that was unknown and terrifying. Sarah felt its cold metal burn against her palm, the weight of potential pressing down harder than the moss-covered earth beneath her feet. Each moment stretched out with tension as she and Jake exchanged a glance rich with shared fears and unarticulated desires. She forced herself to breathe, the shade of the trees casting a gloom that matched the uncertainty in her heart. Why was it so daunting to imagine stepping outside the roles they'd been assigned? She thought of the inventions she had sketched in the margins of her notebooks, ideas that danced tantalizingly on the brink of creation but never materialized. The fear of ridicule stalked her, fear that whatever she conceived could never match up to the concrete aesthetics of the world. Jake, she ventured, breaking the silence, if we could invent anything, what would it be? The question hung in the air, fragile yet potent like a crystal cup poised on the edge of a table. He hesitated, and she saw that familiar flicker of uncertainty cross his face. The corners of his mouth turned downward, almost instinctively retreating into barriers shaped by obligation and family. I wish I could just write what I want, he murmured, his voice low and filled with a longing that resonated deeply within her. But what if it's not enough? What if I disappoint them? Their shared moments of vulnerability had always bound them, yet this felt different, more raw and urgent, perhaps because they stood on the precipice of self-discovery. Sarah lifted the locket to her chest, urging herself to respond, but the words caught in her throat. She understood the weight of family expectations, felt the tight grip of societal norms. The thought of breaking free filled her with trepidation. Maybe, she said slowly, struggling to find clarity amidst her racing thoughts. Maybe we have to take a leap, Jake. None of this is easy, but if we don't try. The words trailed off, an invitation shrouded in both courage and fear. His eyes searched hers, a conflict of restraint battling against the wild spirit of ambition. What if we fail? Wouldn't it just be easier to accept the paths laid out for us? He replied, brows furrowing as he clenched his fists. Maybe, she countered, the embers of determination igniting within her, but what if we fly? What could we create? Who would we become? Her voice, laced with an exhilarating adrenaline, challenged the shadow looming overhead. An image formed in her mind, two friends defying conventions, a spark of innovation, and courage leading the way. The very notion felt liberating, intoxicating even. The energy shifted, a subtle current sparking between them as the air thickened with possibilities. Shades of doubt still lingered, but within that haze was a clarity that surged when they weren't clouded by expectations. They could be the architects of their own futures, but another reality loomed like an ominous specter should they choose to pursue their dreams. The world they knew would inevitably push back against their ambition. Confrontation beckoned, manifesting not only in the risk of failure but in familial expectations and societal judgments. What if they risked everything only to lose their connection? Would they even recognize themselves in the pursuit of what seemed so out of reach? With the weight of the locket palpitating against her chest, Sarah made a silent vow. They were right on the edge of something transformative, but the allure was tempered with risk. The gnawing question remained: could they summon the courage to break from their respective chains, or would they succumb to the temptations of conformity? Silence enveloped them, a mutual acknowledgement of the tempest brewing within and the leap that awaited. The locket began to glow, reflecting not just light but the potential of their shared dreams. As they clutched it tighter, Sarah could hear a different question murmur to life inside her: what would it mean to embrace her true self when the very fabric of her identity felt unraveling? That unsettling thought lingered as they stood together, caught between hope and despair, fear and ambition, family loyalty and the chase of ambition. Would they choose to leap, or would they quietly step back into the shadows that embraced them? The answer called out like a hidden whisper, urging them to decide. The time was drawing near. What they must confront was not just the world around them, but the truths within them. The locket pulsated slightly as Sarah held it against her chest, the sensation igniting fragments of courage simmering deep within her. A void yawned in her mind, swirling with wondrous possibilities and frightening consequences. She paid closer attention to her breath, drawing in air that felt thicker each moment. With every fleeting second, the urge to unfurl her thoughts grew more pressing. Jake, she said after a heavy silence, what if we did it? Just a small step toward the things we've held back. He turned his gaze to the forest floor, brushing his fingertips over the undergrowth as if searching for something hidden. And if that step doesn't land anywhere worthwhile? His voice was barely a whisper, but the vulnerability in it widened the gap between ambition and doubt. A shadow crept over Sarah as fear nudged its way into her thoughts. It twisted the locket's significance from a beacon of hope into a grim reminder of failure. Yet, beneath the surface of her anxiety, determination flared to life. Was the weight of their expectations truly heavier than their dreams? Jake, she said, straining to keep her voice steady. It's not about where we land. It's about trying to leap at all. What are we waiting for? Waiting for someone to tell us it's okay, he replied, his posture hardening like freshly poured concrete. She felt her heart sink, the familiar fangs of resignation clamping down. But a flickering glimmer fretted at the edges of her despair. What if she could be the catalyst? Then let us tell ourselves it's okay, Sarah urged, drawing from that spark. We have to decide what's valuable to us. This isn't about the world's approval. It's about our own. He looked up, their eyes meeting with an intensity that sent ripples of uncharted emotion through her. Here was a moment radiating the possibility of change, but it lived only in the unsteady breaths between them. The idea of inventing their own identities felt daunting and liberating in tandem. She considered her notebooks again, filled to the brim with radical designs for functional art that danced beyond conventional forms. They whispered stories she feared never daring to tell. The thought was seductive. Imagine if we could create something together. The words slipped out, earnest and tugging at the corners of her mouth. A project that reflects both of us. Something no one expects. He hesitated, the tension in his brow signaling his reluctance. But what if they don't understand? What if we fall flat on our faces? Each question felt like a weight, a claim on their creativity. Yet, buried beneath Jake's apprehension lay the same desire stoking her own fire. What if they crafted a narrative no one could confine? Then we learn, she whispered, her heart racing with the thrill of the challenge. We learn about who we are when expectations aren't weighing us down. The silence that followed held a thickness, thick like dreamy fog, each moment casting away obstacles that had long hidden their potentials. Their shared fears morphed into flickers of possibilities, illuminating pathways they had not yet dared to tread. Jake drew a breath, internalizing her challenge. Okay, he finally said, a mixture of uncertainty and excitement creating a newfound energy around them. Let us start small. Let us create a prototype. A surge of exhilaration gripped Sarah as she nodded excitedly, determination propelling her forward. Yes. We can sketch out ideas, bring them to life. Just us, no expectations. But as the realm of creation opened before them, a sinister echo fueled her worries. What would they have to sacrifice? Would their families understand their pursuits? Each thought crawled back into her mind, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. The price of ambition weighed heavily, and realities outside the forest loomed, dark and unavoidable. What if uncharted desires led to disillusionment? Could friendship hold amidst the storm of ambition? That unsettling thought twisted painfully in her gut, a question waiting to erupt. As they embarked on their journey toward creation, the locket gleamed brightly, casting fleeting shadows of doubt across the foliage. Sarah could feel the stakes rising, the itch of anticipation mingling with the tension of unknown futures. The leap was imminent, but would they both soar, or would the consequences ground them in disappointment? That night, as the stars flickered above, a new question gripped her tightly. What would it mean to pursue their truth in a world that might reject it? The thrill of the unknown danced dangerously close, and she felt the tug of destiny shaping her identity, a decision waiting to be made. With the dawn breaking over the horizon, Sarah found herself sitting at her workbench, surrounded by sketch pads and scraps of material that seemed to pulse with potential. The morning light streamed through the window, illuminating the designs she had doodled in her notebooks, each line an embodiment of her desires, her fears morphing into this new reality she could almost reach out and touch. Today was the day she would transform those abstract thoughts into something tangible, but the uneasy weight of her earlier thoughts lingered, whispering doubts into her mind. What if their collaboration led to nothing? What if their definition of success was incomplete, ranging only from mere acceptance to profound understanding? Jake's lingering questions hovered in the atmosphere, challenging her to confront the uncertainties embedded in her resolve. Each sketch was both liberating and suffocating, a paradox reflecting her inner turmoil. Determined to press on, Sarah set out to gather her materials, each piece chosen not only for its beauty but for what it symbolized, a choice to embrace possibility over fear. She could see Jake emerging from the trail leading towards her workshop, his figure bathed in morning light, a harbinger of the day's promise. The anticipation of their first official brainstorming session made her pulse quicken. "Hey!" he called out, his voice infused with a tentative cheerfulness that couldn't mask the undercurrent of doubt swimming beneath. "Ready to start?" With a nod, Sarah motioned him closer. "I've been thinking we should lay it all out literally. I want to pin up sketches and let the ideas flow." As they spread the sketches across the workspace, a visual cacophony of dreams and perspectives emerged, intermingling on the walls. Sarah could sense Jake's hesitance, but beneath it was the same flicker of inspiration that drove her. They began to discuss each idea methodically, nurturing their creativity rather than suffocating it under the weight of insecurity. Yet, as they stood shoulder to shoulder, diving into design dialogues, an unease flickered behind Jake's eyes. Sarah opened up the conversation. "What's bothering you?" "I guess I'm just scared." His admission was punctuated by an edge of vulnerability that stopped Sarah in her tracks. "What if they see our prototype and think it's childish or worse, pointless? What if they laugh?" She felt a pang in her gut. She understood that fear all too well. It echoed her own worries about rejection. But in the face of that fear, Sarah felt a growing clarity. To risk was to embrace their aspirations, no matter how foolish or unattainable they may seem to others. "What if we don't have to show anyone until we're ready?" she suggested. "This is our journey. We can refine it, make it our own, before letting anyone else into the mix." The tension in Jake's shoulders eased slightly, as he contemplated her words. "A private venture, huh? I could get behind that. But still, what if we mess it up? Then we mess it up. We can't know unless we try. Isn't that the point of what we're doing?" His brow furrowed as he processed her challenge. "What are you really afraid of then, Sarah?" Her heart thudded at the vulnerability of this direct inquiry, and she responded cautiously. "The realization that I might be too afraid of what's outside this space to fully commit here and of failing with you. What if this experiment changes us?" Silence draped over them, heavy with the enormity of their conversation. Each glance exchanged revealed vulnerabilities they had rarely shared before, a candid introspection into their friendship that popped the surface of their camaraderie. As they returned to sketching and brainstorming, a fire ignited in Sarah, a fusion of clarity and urgency to discover their true paths. This was more than mere creation, it was a dance between their identities and the world's expectations. "Let's make it bold," she declared, her voice imbued with newfound conviction. "If we're scared, let's channel that into something that can't be ignored." With their resolution solidified, they spent the day tearing down barriers and raising structures uncontained by societal norms, their laughter mingling with the creativity that seeped into every corner of the makeshift studio. Yet, the echoes of doubt still curled around them, the inevitable questions hovering in the background, waiting for their moment to resurface. As evening approached, Sarah's heart thudded violently in her chest, a potent cocktail of excitement and trepidation flooded her senses again. The adventure had begun, but would they conquer the fears that lay in the shadows lingering at the periphery of their dreams? Tomorrow, they would unveil their concept to each other in its rawest form, throwing caution to the wind. But would they be ready for the consequences, especially if what they crafted resulted in an unexpected rift? The stake of their friendship felt palpably real, and Sarah couldn't help but wonder, what were they truly willing to risk? The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that flickered against the walls, an ephemeral reminder that time was slipping away. Sarah stood at her workbench, her heart racing, a mix of exhilaration and dread suffusing her being. With every tick of the clock, the anticipation clawed at her, threads of anxiety mingling with hope as she shuffled through sketches, evaluating the worth of their collective dreams. Last night's bravado felt tethered to a fragile string. Would tomorrow's unveiling provide clarity, or would it expose their insecurities? The notion gnawed at her, drawing her deeper into contemplation. Taking a breath, Sarah gazed at her sketches, colored marks revealing more than design. They narrated a journey of vulnerability, of two friends coaxing raw creation into the world. Each stroke contained whispers of aspiration and trepidation, a mirrored reflection of their intertwined hopes and fears. As she scrutinized the palette littered across the table, she felt an urgency, driven by an understanding that the act of creation was as transformative as the creation itself. She turned her thoughts inward, recalling Jake's fraught expression during their discussions. There had been an openness in his vulnerability, an invitation for Sarah to explore her own. What if their experiment pushed them beyond their comfort zones, unveiling layers they had kept well obscured? Could fear morph into a powerful tool, one that sculpted instead of stifling? As night fell, Sarah found herself pacing the dimly lit room, her thoughts tangled in possibilities. Inspiration curled into existence as she visualized the prototype, its potential as vast as the night sky. Yet, hovering in the background were the specters of criticism. What if their idea was raw and unpolished? What if it crumbled under scrutiny? Hours slipped by, the quiet hum of the workshop soothing her frayed nerves. She realized she was reluctant to suppress her creativity for the sake of others' acceptance. A revelation surged through her: their work didn't seek validation but exploration, a way to transcend conventional barriers. This awakening ignited her determination. "I refuse to dim my light," she murmured, embracing her truth. A sense of control blossomed within her, she could steer the narrative of their creation. But the moment of clarity quickly morphed into a deeper apprehension. What if that meant risking the integrity of her friendship with Jake? The stakes felt heavier. This partnership meant something more than professional aspirations. It was a delicate balancing act between artistic integrity and personal connection. To guide his insecurities into confidence required a deft touch, a careful acknowledgement of their fears while simultaneously cultivating strength within their collaboration. With revitalized purpose, Sarah shuffled through her notes and drafted a list. Each element was a step toward clarity, the idea that she could shape their idea into something fiercely original, meaning it wasn't about simply accumulating approval. It was about authentically expressing themselves, balancing their distinct aspirations and allowing room for growth. Tomorrow would not just be a review of sketches, it would be a truth-telling revelation. As the last remnants of daylight faded, she pored over the words she'd prepared for Jake, a series of prompts, not merely critiques but reflections that could breed encouragement. Morning light would undoubtedly unveil their creation, illuminated by shared fears, but also by the transformative power of hope and mutual honesty. As she finally laid her head down, exhaustion clinging to her limbs, a final thought echoed in her mind: what if this exploration not only changed their friendship but revealed hidden strengths they never knew they possessed? Tomorrow, their revelations would intertwine, shaping the very fabric of their future endeavors. As sleep claimed her, an underlying question surged forth: would they emerge stronger, or would their friendship unravel under the weight of their ambitions? As dawn broke, a soft light filtered through the workshop windows, illuminating the chaotic beauty of sketches and tools scattered across the workbench. Sarah awoke with a clarity that felt foreign, yet exhilarating. Today was not just another project, it was a pivot point, a chance to reveal not only their work but their true selves. She slipped into a routine while waiting for Jake to arrive, each purposeful movement an act of grounding. The kettle whistled, grounding her in the rhythm of anticipation. Coffee in hand, she began to reread her notes, but instead of the expected familiarity, doubt crept in. What if Jake didn't see their vision? What if her desire to push boundaries was met with resistance, or worse, confusion? She diverted her gaze toward the door as she paced. Jake had always been hesitant, clinging to the familiar while Sarah thrived in the experimental. Yet, hadn't their friendship prospered amid the challenges that forced them to confront their fears? Today, they would have to expose those fears, and Sarah felt the weight of that responsibility. When Jake finally stepped in, his brow furrowed in concentration, his usual joviality overshadowed by the looming critique. The air was thick with unstated anxiety, each heartbeat an invitation to breach the topic that lay heavily upon them. "Hey," he murmured, setting a backpack on the table, the very embodiment of their partnership. She returned his greeting with a reassuring smile, hoping to coax the unease from his shoulders. "So, are you ready?" "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied, running a hand through his hair, a gesture that felt all too familiar. It spoke not only of his nerves but of his ever-present vulnerability. They began laying out their sketches, the designs sprawling across the workspace, color and texture melding together in an unpredictable dance. Sarah felt her heart race as she shared her vision first, an articulation of ideas that blended emotion with the potential for innovation. What I love about this piece, she started, her voice steadying with each word, is how it challenges conventional aesthetics. It's messy and raw, but it has heart. Jake's eyes narrowed as he studied the sketch. It's bold, he acknowledged, his tone tinged with caution. Please, tell me what you really think, Sarah pressed, her resolve hardening. The moment held a weight that transcended mere critique. It was a foray into the foundation of their artistic souls that he inhaled deeply, shifting from hesitant critique to raw honesty. I just worry that boldness can come off as reckless. What if we miss the mark? What if no one resonates with it? His fears echoed within the walls of her own mind, whispering reminders of insecurities. How often had she felt the choking confines of validation pressing upon her creativity? What if it's about more than just resonance? What if it's about our truth? Silence enveloped them as Jake pondered her words, the evening's plot thickening with each moment. You mean like transforming fear into art? Yes. And understanding that not everyone will like it. But isn't it our responsibility to share what we create from a place of authenticity? Isn't that where our strength lies? They exchanged hesitant glances, a silent acknowledgement that traversed uncharted waters in their collaboration. The vulnerability of honesty seemed to stitch the frayed edges of their partnership together, but an underlying tension persisted. Could they truly uncover the raw essence of their artistry while maintaining their friendship intact? As they continued discussing their work, Sarah's heart drummed with anticipation. Her resolve had hardened into clarity, yet the delicate dance of ambition and artistic expression was underway. They were on the brink of transformation, both personally and professionally. With the sketches before them, a question loomed larger than before: could they challenge the boundaries of their creativity without losing the bond that united them? Sarah's pulse quickened as she broached the next topic, knowing it would require a plunge into deeper waters. What if we not only showcase our designs, but also include a narrative that reflects our journey? Showcase our transformation through these works. In that moment, she knew that their exploration was not merely about art, it was about understanding their identities, a journey that could either liberate or entangle them in unknown complexities. How could they navigate this unveiling, and what truths awaited them on the other side? As they leaned in closer to the sketches, a haunting uncertainty lingered in the air. Was this exploration going to become an unraveling of their friendship, or would it open a new chapter that could reshape both their lives forever? The first rays of sunlight had long settled into the workshop, and now the atmosphere felt almost electric, charged with the potential of their ideas. Sarah shifted her eyes between Jake and the sketches sprawled out before them, tightly wound with anticipation. Our journey has shaped us as artists, she stated, her voice carrying the weight of urgency. Let us not shy away from that. Jake shifted uncomfortably, glancing from the artwork to Sarah's earnest face. What if it's too personal? He asked, a hint of apprehension creeping into his tone. What if people cannot separate the art from our lives? Or worse, what if it brings everything to the surface, all those past failures and doubts? Or what if it inspires them? Sarah responded, the conviction in her voice rising. Art is an extension of ourselves. Isn't hiding that part of us a disservice? She felt the gravity of her words settle around them, a dare to confront not just external judgments, but their internal struggles as well. Jake's brow furrowed, his thoughts on the line between art and personal vulnerability visibly battling within him. Sarah knew his hesitation stemmed from the fear of exposure, the risk that his own insecurities could bleed into their work, tainting its very essence with apprehension. Think about it, she coaxed, reconnecting with memories of late nights spent sharing their artistic dreams and the fears that haunted them. We can't ask our audience to embrace our truth if we aren't willing to embrace it ourselves. Silence enveloped them again, the only sound being their breathing and the faint creaks of the workshop settling into the morning. As moments passed, Sarah considered how much was at stake, not just for their project, but for their friendship. Could he truly see the potential that lay beneath their uncertainty? After what felt like an eternity, Jake spoke softly. It's a leap, isn't it? Putting ourselves out there. There was a tremor in his voice, a realization that his comfort zone felt increasingly like a prison. "It is," she replied, her heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. "But we can't grow if we don't take risks. This is our chance to transform and convey that journey." A flicker of resolve sparked in Jake's expression. "Okay, let us do it. Let us incorporate our stories. But I want to frame it carefully. Maybe a balance between our narrative and the art itself." Relief washed over Sarah, but it was fleeting as other complexities emerged. "Sure, but we have to be honest, raw. If we sugarcoat it, we lose the essence." Jake exhaled slowly, nodding, yet apprehension clouded his features once more. "I just don't want to get hurt for exposing too much. How can we find the balance?" She wondered aloud, the question surfacing within her mind like a locked door in need of a key. The more they pushed into intimate territory, the more muddled their friendship could become. Jake shifted on his stool, the tension palpable as if he were weighing each word on a delicate scale. "What if we selectively choose what to reveal? A curated version of ourselves?" She pressed, her thoughts spinning with the implications. "But that might dilute the message we want to convey. Would it truly reflect what we know and feel?" The workshop suddenly felt stifling as both of them wrestled with deeper layers of trust. In their quest for authenticity, they risked not just exposing their art, but establishing a new foundation, one that might challenge the very relationship they had cultivated over the years. Silence returned, thick with unspoken fears and uncharted territories. What would this exploration reveal? The way ahead was foggy, but Sarah sensed the enormity of their intersection. The melding of art with personal truth posed an opportunity beyond the canvas. She took a breath, determination rekindling within her. "Jake," she said with deliberate calmness, "these artworks could become a powerful mirror. Are we ready to show everyone not just what we create, but who we are underneath it all?" His gaze met hers, a flood of emotions rippling through the quiet air: fear, hope, uncertainty, all colliding in a moment. As their decision loomed, Sarah felt the weight of the challenge ahead grow heavier. Could their willingness to expose their true selves bring them together or unravel them entirely? The question echoed in her mind as they closed in on their sketches. Were they prepared for the consequences of unmasking their deepest selves in a world that could judge them? The stakes had never felt so high, and yet, a part of her thrummed with exhilaration at the prospect. But what if unveiling their truth only revealed more than either of them had bargained for? Days passed, yet the tension in the workshop hung like a thick fog, its weight pressing on Sarah's chest. The sketches that had once inspired her began to feel like weights anchoring her to a fear of exposure. Each time she returned, her mind wrestled with the depth of their artistic risk. What did it mean to convey vulnerability on a canvas that would bear their names? One afternoon, while alone in the workshop, Sarah surveyed the sketches mounted on the wall. Each brushstroke had been a step toward honesty, yet she felt disconnected, as if the artwork was a distant echo of her true self. She picked up a brush, its presence immediately grounding her as she dipped it into paint. The colors splashed vibrant against the stark white canvas, revealing layers she hadn't anticipated. Maybe getting lost in the art was a way to unlock a truth hidden within her, a truth she was only beginning to grasp. She blended colors, turning the act of creation into a form of discovery. Each stroke began to speak volumes, her hands moving with instinct, as if her subconscious was guiding the brush to unearth her feelings. As she worked, Sarah's mind drifted to her own story, the moments of doubt, the aspirations that felt perpetually out of reach, the overwhelming fear that had stifled her for so long. The workshop became her sanctuary, the act of creation an essential catharsis, pouring paint into emotions she had previously buried beneath layers of decorum. Then she paused, recognizing an unsettling thought emerging. What if her art wasn't entirely authentic because it was restricted by her fear of judgment? She recalled her earlier conversation with Jake and how the prospect of unfiltered expression had scared him. The very idea now unnerved her too. Perhaps she was on the verge of fully realizing her potential, but only if she was brave enough to be honest. Their commitment to blend personal truths into their work had been a leap into the unknown, yet it felt more like a precipice of despair now. Was she ready to face her fears? To expose not only her art but the woman beneath it. Hiding is not living, she murmured to herself, the words echoing within the empty space of the workshop. They felt like an invocation, a challenge to confront her buried fears head-on. Determined, Sarah decided to explore her limits further. She glanced at her phone, the glow inviting her to capture moments from the workshop, creating a visual documentation of the transformation unfolding. As she snapped photos of the evolving artwork and the growth it represented, a thread of inspiration wove itself tighter within her. But it wasn't enough just to create, she needed to connect. The arrival of the digital images allowed her to see a story unfolding, one of struggle and triumph, and it demanded articulation beyond the physical. She envisioned an online platform where she and Jake could share not just their artwork, but the narratives that would make them relatable, not sanitized, but raw and real. As she gathered courage, an email draft formed in her mind. It was an invitation for Jake, an appeal to engage with the process they had hesitated to truly embrace. She wanted to propose that they share not just their final pieces but the journey itself, the struggles, the breakthroughs, and the intersecting paths. With every word typed, Sarah felt her sense of self ignite. She acknowledged the risk, both professional and personal, that lay ahead. But amidst the uncertainty, an exhilarating clarity blossomed. This wasn't just about art, it was about authenticity and the power inherent in vulnerability. Just as Sarah hit send, a wave of anxiety rolled through her. Had she crossed a line? Would Jake feel overwhelmed by her instincts, or would he embrace the unvarnished truth she had unveiled? As the clock ticked ominously, she resisted the urge to second-guess herself. The sheer act of revealing her vision had unleashed something within her, an urge to grow, to redefine their artistic relationship, and ultimately, to discover a new version of herself. She stared at the empty canvas, absorbing the shift in her perception. The next steps lay before her, and she felt a compelling force pulling her toward them. What lay ahead for Sarah and Jake if they chose to embrace their journey without the safety net of pretense? Would the unveiling of their true selves transform their craft and their friendship forever? The next morning, a gray veil of clouds hung over the city, mirroring the uncertainty in Sarah's heart. Her phone buzzed, jolting her from the remnants of sleep. It was an email notification from Jake. She hesitated to read it, an electric tension gripping her gut, but curiosity propelled her forward. As she scrolled through the message, a mix of relief and apprehension washed over her. Jake had expressed a willingness to dive deeper into their ideas, but he also voiced concerns about sharing their vulnerabilities with the world. He was grappling with his fears, a shared sentiment that both anchored them and threatened to unmoor their burgeoning partnership. What if this journey exposed them in ways they weren't ready to face? The thought loomed like a specter, intensifying her desire to initiate a change but amplifying her fear of defeat. They were on the brink of transformation, yet that very verge felt so delicate, as if a single misstep could shatter their aspirations. Determined to confront the vulnerabilities that had surfaced, Sarah crafted a reply, pouring her thoughts onto the screen with fervor. She acknowledged his hesitations while emphasizing the necessity of raw honesty for both their art and their friendship. Each word felt like stepping onto a tightrope, balancing the desire for connection against the fear of rejection. When she finished, she promptly hit send, trying to dispel the rising tide of anxiety. She needed to occupy the workshop to immerse herself in the atmosphere that inspired growth. The tension in her chest was becoming an old, familiar acquaintance. It spoke of her ambition, her need for authenticity. In the studio, Sarah found solace in the vibrant hues of her latest work, contrasting striking colors against muted tones. As she blended paint and let the brush flow, memories of her earlier insecurities surfaced. What had once been obstacles now manifested as stepping stones, a realization that every challenge she faced had contributed to her artistic evolution. She was not merely an artist, she was a burgeoning storyteller, ready to articulate the truths buried under layers of self-doubt. Fingers stained with paint, she stepped back to assess her progress. The artwork pulsated with her emotions, a vivid tapestry of struggles, fears, and hopes. Suddenly, the thought struck her, her connection with Jake could also serve as a powerful narrative. They were navigating their uncertainties together, and their story could resonate with others facing similar battles. A small, insistent voice beckoned her to consider how they could share not just their final pieces but the raw, tender experiences that forged them. This thought ignited a fire within her. A new commitment blossomed. They could curate an online showcase, projects documenting not only their art but their emotional journeys and the risk of vulnerability that shaped their work. Every flick of her brush felt more decisive than the anticipation fueling her creative spirit. She envisioned blog entries alongside their paintings, maybe even videos chronicling late-night discussions and impromptu creative bursts. Yet, beneath the boiling excitement was a simmering anxiety. Would Jake accept this pivot, this challenge to embrace their art as a living, breathing entity? What if he resisted, clinging to the safety of solitude rather than risking vulnerability? Determined to dispel self-doubt, Sarah refocused on her canvas. Each stroke represented courage, the courage to be seen, to triumph over fear. As she painted, she rehearsed the conversation she would have with Jake, visualizing his responses, navigating potential clashes. No matter the outcome, she recognized that embracing authenticity was an act of defiance against their previous hesitations. The workshop felt more like an incubator of possibility. A woman forging her path, one that was increasingly interwoven with another. What would Jake say when she presented her bold idea? Would he dare join her in this venture, or would he shrink back into the shadows of hesitation? The thought gnawed at her, an unsettling curiosity about his true response. The moment loomed, a convergence of dreams, risks, and essential truths. Would they embrace the raw honesty behind their creativity and emerge stronger together? Or would fear pull them apart once again, leaving them adrift in the realms of doubt? The day had arrived, and the workshop, their sanctuary, felt electric with anticipation. Sarah stood amidst the sketches and paint, every item a testament to her evolution from a hesitant mechanic's daughter to an artist determined to transcend boundaries. What began in fear now pulsed with possibility. She meticulously aligned her notes, her vision clear for the first time. They would not just share their art, they would share their truths. As she awaited Jake, a calm certainty washed over her. This wasn't just about their project anymore, it was a pivotal moment in their lives. Both of them had been teetering on the edge of self-discovery, but now it was time to leap into the unknown. When Jake stepped into the workshop, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Yet behind that uncertainty was an ember of shared courage igniting the space between them. "Hey," he greeted, a hint of nervousness threading his tone. "Hey. I've been thinking a lot about our project," Sarah began, her voice steady yet inviting as she met his gaze. "Me too," he admitted, glancing at the sketches spread out before them. "I'm still worried about putting ourselves out there." "Me too. But what's the point of hiding?" she challenged gently. "We've come so far. What we create can inspire others, but only if we're honest about who we are." The air thickened with the weight of their shared dreams and fears, the stakes now impossibly tangible. He took a deep breath, absorbing her words. "All right, tell me what you have in mind." "I believe we should combine our artistic pieces with the narrative of our journey, our vulnerabilities, our fears, and the triumphs that have marked our paths. Let us make it a joint venture, not just an exhibition but a reflection of us." Authentic and unmasked, she articulated, infused with the passion she'd been cultivating. Jake's brow furrowed with contemplation. "Documenting our process. Like a story with our art." "Yes. We can create a blog that chronicles our struggles and breakthroughs, along with the art itself. I want it to be about the journey, not just the destination. It's time we stop allowing fear to dictate our creative outputs." A flicker of realization sparked in Jake's expression. He saw the potential, he could almost taste the freedom their newfound honesty promised. "You really believe it will resonate?" he asked, vulnerability spilling from his voice. "I do. Because it's real. This is our chance to connect with people who face the same fears we do. We've been scared for so long. This could be our way of turning it into something powerful," she urged, hoping to pierce through layers of hesitation with promises of authenticity. After a moment's silence, Jake slowly nodded, a smile breaking across his face. "I'm in." But let us make sure we keep some balance. Exposing ourselves is scary. Honesty can be beautiful, but it can also hurt. Sarah felt a rush of warmth. Exactly. We can navigate it together. We're learning, right? It's all part of the process. They stood shoulder to shoulder, a palpable energy crackling between them. It felt like a turning point, not just in their project but in their lives. Sarah could sense a profound shift occurring within them, both ready to conquer personal fears while embracing vulnerability. As they delved deep into planning their concept, art began to flow, blending the echoes of their stories into a vibrant narrative. Ideas sparked and transformed as each layer unearthed something new. Time-worn insecurities brushed aside, replaced with echoing laughter and daring dreams. Weeks turned into months, and their project flourished into an organic reflection of who they had become. Prototypes evolved, designs took form, and each brushstroke was a testament to their shared journeys. They put themselves out there, documenting not just the success, but the stumbling blocks they navigated along the way. Finally, the day of their debut arrived. They stood side by side before a gathering of friends, family, and a receptive audience in a cozy gallery space. The air buzzed with excitement, but for Sarah, the real achievement was the palpable sense of authenticity they exuded. As they walked attendees through the exhibition, Sarah looked over at Jake, who wore a proud smile. He was confidently sharing their story, the words flowing freely. For the first time in a long time, Sarah felt anchored in a sense of belonging and purpose as they showcased their work. "Thank you for believing in this," she whispered to him, her heart swelling with pride. "We believed in each other," he replied, affirming the strength of their collaboration. In every interaction, she felt the weight of her fears dissipating, revealing a solid confidence that she had once thought impossible. They conquered not just the project, but the internal battles that had once held them hostage. By embracing vulnerability, they achieved more than accolades, they reclaimed their identities. As the night wound down, awards and praises flowed in abundance. Yet the most important honor was the recognition of their growth. Sarah knew they had evolved into credible artists, capable of sharing their truths and making an impact. In that moment, standing amidst the art they had created, Sarah revealed the depth of her ambition. She had transformed not only into an innovator, but into a woman who embraced her emotions, insecurities, and journeys. And she had helped Jake confront his own obstacles, solidifying their friendship and growth as they defined new pathways together. True fulfillment resonated within her heart, reflecting their growth and courageous leap into authenticity. They hadn't just climbed out from under the weight of expectations, they had carved out a space for their ambitions, where dreams arose from honest endeavors. Now, with the shadows that once loomed over them disbanded, Sarah fully embodied her belief that it was never too late to create what she had always envisioned. This time, she would soar not just with aspirations, but with the confidence of a true creator ready to inspire. And as they walked out into the night, Jake turned to her, "Ready for another project?" "Absolutely," she responded, her heart brimming with the exhilarating promise of future uncharted endeavors. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now to witness the incredible journeys of personal transformation and creativity. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these stories of courage. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah and Jake's conclusion. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share the journey.